The U-turn in US crypto policy has flipped the script. The SEC's war on crypto failed miserably, and regulators around the world have been taking notes. Now, we've talked a lot about what this means for investors in the US, but America isn't the only country where regulatory uncertainty has been keeping investors sidelined. Today, we find out how the latest regulatory developments in a pair of Asian crypto powerhouses could turn into some serious tailwinds for the markets, plus which cryptos are likely to benefit the most. My name is Guy, and you are watching the Coin Bureau. So, the US is in the middle of a historic U-turn on crypto, and although new legislation isn't set in stone yet, the message could not be clearer. Trump loves crypto, and crypto is to be encouraged at all costs. According to research by Coinbase and EY Parthenon, more than 80% of US institutional investors say they plan to increase their allocations to crypto this year. And the same survey found that these investors view regulatory clarity as the #1 catalyst for industry growth during the second Trump administration. That's right, they say what crypto needs most right now is not innovation, popular adoption, or more ETF approvals. It's clear regulations. Fix this and conservative institutional capital should come rolling in. Now imagine this same story repeated all over the world. Every jurisdiction that introduces clear and sensible regulations is another avenue for institutional capital to start flowing into the crypto market. Sounds good, right? Now, we know all about how the regulatory landscape is shaping up in the US and, for that matter, Europe. We're talking about it constantly. And if you aren't up to speed, you can catch up with our latest reports here and here. But today, we're turning our attention to East Asia, where crypto juggernauts Japan and South Korea are both on the cusp of regulatory reforms that should be extremely bullish. So, we'll begin in Japan. Once a trailblazer for reasonable crypto regulation, it has since become a regulatory quagmire that tends to repel crypto founders and startups. After the Japan-based Mt. Gox exchange was hacked and lost some 800,000 BTC back in 2014, the government said never again and introduced the world's first comprehensive regulatory framework for crypto. Japan was widely praised for its progressive approach at a time when most countries were paying little attention to crypto. Unfortunately, though, Japanese crypto exchanges continued to suffer hacks, leading to the regulatory screws tightening considerably from the late 2010s onwards. Many lessons were learned the hard way in this period, and thankfully, crypto exchange security is much more robust nowadays, the recent Bybit hack notwithstanding. And by the way, if you're in the market for a new crypto exchange, then check out the Coin Bureau deals page. There, you'll find sign-up bonuses of up to $100,000, trading fee discounts of up to 50%, and cashback on deposits of up to 75% on the best crypto exchanges. These deals are available for a limited time only, so get your skates on and take advantage of them using the link down below. Anyway, after a series of crypto exchange calamities, Japan got regulatory clarity all right, but it ended up putting crypto in a straitjacket, and the principal patients at this regulatory madhouse were stablecoins. For example, foreign-issued stablecoins like USDT and USDC, which form the backbone of the crypto economy and centralized exchange infrastructure, were banned for years in Japan. Meanwhile, regulations for domestic alternatives made the business of issuing stablecoins there unviable. This is one of the reasons why the Japanese yen is the second most traded fiat currency for BTC in the world. Most of the world is trading BTC USDT, or now BTC USDC, but Japan is BTC JPY all the way. And speaking of Bitcoin, dominance is extremely high in Japan, with BTC accounting for 77% of the trading volume on Bitflyer, Japan's largest centralized exchange, at the time of making this video. This may also be a symptom of the regulatory maze that has stifled DeFi adoption and made altcoin listings on centralized exchanges extremely slow and difficult. Now, the good news is that stablecoin regulations have been easing since 2023, when the ban on foreign stablecoins was nominally lifted. Progress has been extremely slow since then, but we are finally starting to see some results. In March, the Japanese financial conglomerate SBI, a former subsidiary of SoftBank, received the country's first registration related to stablecoin transactions, enabling it to process transactions in Circle's USDC. This made USDC the first and only stablecoin to be approved for use in Japanese markets. USDC was listed on the SBI VC trade exchange on the 26th of March this year, and Circle is looking to get it listed on major local exchanges Bitflyer, Binance Japan, and BitBank, with exact dates unknown. A good start, but there are many other problems that need to be addressed. Another factor that's suppressed crypto in Japan is the way it's taxed. Perhaps because Japan was so early to the crypto regulation party, it decided to regulate crypto as a form of payment. Now, this may not sound bad on paper because, we all want crypto payments to succeed. But tax purposes, this means that crypto gains are treated as miscellaneous income in Japan and taxed at up to 55%, with losses not being deductible. This contrasts sharply with the rate investors pay for capital gains on other financial assets, which is 20%. Regulations like this are the reason why pro-crypto former Prime Minister Fumio Kishida had his government publish a Web3 policy white paper in 2022. And the result was a scathing critique. Quote, Japan, which had once led the world's crypto industry up to the mid-2010s, has become a country that is avoided by entrepreneurs both domestically and internationally. Regulations were strengthened and the crypto industry in the Japanese market lost its attraction. Many entrepreneurs and investors left Japan to seek better business environments. Now, the good news is this message was received loud and clear. Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party has signalled that it will move ahead with a major crypto tax reform proposal written by the same Web3 working group that published this white paper. This proposal would slash the tax on crypto gains to 20%, make losses tax deductible, and reclassify crypto as a distinct asset class, subject to Japan's Financial Instruments and Exchange Act, and not the Payment Services Act, which is the current instrument used for regulating crypto. This is a huge win and unambiguously very bullish because it makes crypto a much more lucrative investment for Japan's 104 million adults. Back in December of 2021, the CEO of Japan's Bitcoin exchange told CoinDesk that if the authorities were to reduce the tax on crypto gains to 20%, then some 10 to 20 trillion yen would return to Japan's crypto markets. On the higher end, that's 130 billion US dollars, suggesting that we might see some unfathomable inflows coming from Japan in the coming years. Now, unfortunately, the Bitcoin CEO did not mention where he got this number from, so it could be wildly inaccurate. However, it is safe to say that a tax cut of this magnitude would be very positive for crypto prices, at least the prices of cryptos offered in Japan. Unlike the double-edged sword of ETFs, which can produce outflows just as easily as inflows, a massive tax cut on crypto can only encourage more people to buy more of it. And it should be even more exciting if you subscribe to the theory that Bitcoin is the quintessential debasement trade, meaning that the more that fiat currency loses value due to money printing, the more valuable BTC becomes. Now, the reason I mention this is because Japan is further down this particular road than any other country and has one of the most cooked of all major world currencies. And if you're not sure why, then check out our report on the yen carry trade for the background on all of this. However, there has been some confusion about crypto regulatory reform in Japan of late. Last October, the Financial Services Agency launched a review into the existing crypto laws. At the time, we said this was very big news, mainly because the review would ask whether crypto should be regulated as a form of payment under Japan's Payment Services Act, or if it would be better reclassified as a financial product under Japan's Financial Instruments and Exchange Act. This question appeared to have been answered in late March when a report in Nikkei claimed that the FSA was readying a proposal to reclassify crypto as a financial product. According to Nikkei's report, this bill will be submitted to the Parliament as early as 2026 and will place crypto under the regulatory authority of the FSA, although no source for this claim was given. This would reclassify digital as a distinct asset class and mean the tax on gains being slashed from 55% to 20%. Now, you may notice a big overlap with the reforms proposed by the LDP that I mentioned a moment ago. This is a little confusing, but no worries. The party of government and the finance regulator agree on the reform? Cool, got it. Well, that was our conclusion until the next day, when the FSA denied the claims in the Nikkei article. A spokesperson told Cointelegraph that the FSA had not made any specific policy decision on whether or not to revise the Financial Instruments and Exchange Act and whether or not to classify crypto assets as financial instruments. So, the LDP says it's going ahead with this reform, and the FSA says it hasn't made any decision about it. It's not exactly what I would call regulatory clarity, but let's keep an eye on this story. A decision will be finalised at some point, and we suspect that the reclassification and tax reform proposals will see the light of day eventually. Now, there is one more interesting story that came out of Japan recently. Also in late March, the US SEC published a letter from Web3 advocacy group Asia Web3 Alliance Japan, addressed to Crypto Task Force Chairman and Commissioner Hester Peirce. The letter proposes a US-Japan joint working group of the SEC's Crypto Task Force and, quote, relevant Japanese authorities such as Japan's Financial Services Agency, Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, and the Bank of Japan. As far as we can tell, this advocacy group is not affiliated with the Japanese government, so we have to wonder if any of these relevant Japanese authorities were consulted beforehand. At any rate, though, the gist of the letter is, hey, we noticed the SEC flipped super pro-crypto now, and we want some of that to rub off on Japan. The letter lists the regulatory challenges facing crypto in Japan, including the tax burden and asset classification issues, but also varying interpretations of existing law and tax frameworks across Japan that create an excessive compliance burden for crypto firms. Now, we think the latter problem is the main argument for any international working group on crypto regulation, whether it's the US and Japan or any other countries. A consistent approach to regulations is the bare minimum for businesses to be able to function without spending all of their resources on compliance. And this applies both nationally and internationally. Crypto, which is necessarily borderless and global, will struggle if too many jurisdictions go in different directions. Regulatory fragmentation has been blamed, for example, for sluggish institutional adoption of crypto in Europe, despite the EU-wide Markets in Crypto Assets, or MiCA, regulations that have been phased in since 2023. If Japan has one way of categorizing crypto assets, issuers and projects, the US has another, Germany another, and so on, then compliance is likely to become prohibitively expensive and difficult. For decentralized networks and organizations used to borderless, frictionless value transfers, this could be a total minefield. So, as this letter points out, it would be handy if there were some internationally recognized definitions of, for example, tokenized securities, utility tokens, and non-security digital assets. This would make it easier for crypto founders to comply with regulations in multiple jurisdictions and provide the clarity needed for more businesses to engage with crypto across borders. So, an international regulatory task force of the US, Japan, and perhaps others isn't such a bad idea, especially while we have a very pro-crypto SEC to lead the charge. I mean, do we want to leave a global regulatory regime up to the Financial Action Task Force? Hell no. Anywho, we'll have to wait and see if the SEC or any of Japan's regulators have anything to say about this task force proposal. For the moment, though, the big news from Japan is the regulatory and tax reforms proposed by the Liberal Democratic Party. Now then, if we take a left at Japan, we'll arrive in South Korea, where there is good news and bad news. So, let's start with the good. Since 2017, institutions and corporations have been shut out of the South Korean crypto market by strict rules on who can open an account at a crypto exchange. But this is about to change. Korea is famously crypto crazy, with more than 30% of the population having an account on a crypto exchange. South Koreans held around $70.3 billion of crypto at the end of last year, and trading volume on Korean sexes is on the cusp of flipping the country's stock market. Considering that 100% of the trading volume on Korean sexes nominally comes from retail investors, and that Korean stocks are traded by corporate and institutional investors all around the world, that is pretty amazing. Still, if we can get Korea's corporate and institutional investors on domestic exchanges, it would be huge news. For the cryptos that have exchange listings and are popular in Korea, that is. The good news is that you don't have to overthink this one. I'll give you a clue. It starts with an X and ends with a P. Now, if we turn to Upbit, we can see that XRP accounted for $360 million in trading volume, or 22% of all the trading on the exchange in the last 24 hours. That's more than BTC, USDT, ETH, Sol, Doge, and Sui combined. Dino coins are king on Upbit, and there is only one king of the Dino coin jungle in Korea. Since Korean capital in crypto is so heavily concentrated in this one crypto, you might want to keep an eye on its chart around the time that Korean institutional capital is let loose on the crypto market. Ah yes, about that though. South Korea's Financial Services Commission has started rolling out crypto investment accounts for corporations and institutions with a pilot that began in February. But during this initial phase, only selling is allowed. Yes, you did hear that right. Korean institutional crypto participation is bearish until further notice. This phase will run through the first half of 2025, during which participation is limited to crypto exchanges, law enforcement agencies, charities, and educational institutions. They can finally sell any crypto that has accrued to them since 2017, which they previously could not do inside Korea. Buying is out of the question, though. In other words, all of the crypto seized by law enforcement, donated to universities, and collected as fees by centralized exchanges since 2017 is now being sold for Korean won. So, if you've seen EOS dumping recently, you know who to blame. Just kidding, I think. Anyway, the good news is that starting from the second half of this year, buying will be allowed and participation extended to institutional and professional investors. The bad news is that institutional, corporate, and individual investors in South Korea are not likely to be investing heavily in crypto for the rest of this year, at least. The economy has been taking a beating since a botched military coup ordered by the president in December embroiled the country in an ongoing crisis. And around 40% of South Korea's GDP comes from exports, so US tariffs are hanging over the country like a guillotine precisely at a moment when there's no credible leadership able to cut deals with or plead for mercy from President Trump. But as we have been all telling ourselves this year, we're in this for the long run. 2025 has been pretty hairy so far, with ostensibly bullish news having little positive effect on crypto prices. This is bad news if you bought crypto a few months ago and need to sell it right now. But price action doesn't stop good news from being good news. And away from the charts, good news is everywhere you look. Thailand, for example, just approved the use of USDT and USDC for listing on local crypto exchanges. In Australia, meanwhile, upcoming federal elections in May could bring a years-long effort to introduce a regulatory framework for crypto to fruition. Both the ruling party and the opposition coalition are competing to win over crypto voters with promises to prioritize regulation if they win the election. Over in Argentina, which overtook Brazil as the largest country in South America for crypto inflows in 2024, the securities regulator has finalized rules for virtual asset service providers. These include mandatory separation of company and client funds, annual audits, obligations around cybersecurity and risk disclosures, and so on. All very good things that are needed if institutional capital is to come anywhere near crypto. I could keep going, but I think you get the picture. Regulations around the world are finally moving in the right direction, and this is providing the foundation that crypto founders, developers, and investors need to cook in peace. This is a structural change, though, whose effects will be felt over years, not over the 15-minute timeframe on TradingView. Let's not forget, we spent the last few years in a historic period of repression at the hands of a powerful US regulator gone rogue. The whole world saw how badly that went for everyone involved, and lessons have no doubt been learned. We often say that narrative follows price, but this is most true on shorter timeframes. In the long run, regulatory clarity should allow the industry to flourish, and prices will catch up sooner or later. Now, while you're waiting for that to happen, why not check out our recent video to find out which cryptos are on Wall Street's watch list in 2025. That's all from me for now. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Guy, over and out.